This is part 2 of chapter 6 in CG Dive's Rigify course. In the previous part, we learned all about the rig types in a theoretical way, and in this chapter, we'll put what we learned into practice. For that purpose, I have prepared this character. It looks a little bit like the so-called furry characters, and I know that many people love this style, other people find it funny for some reason, some consider it part of the adult industry, but let's just throw all that out of the window. It's just an interesting and unusual character, and it will be great for practicing creating our own rigs with Rigify. By the way, you can also watch this course on academy.cgdive.com. Until around the end of January 2024, the course is in early access, so you will have to pay a modest fee for it, or you can also subscribe to the entire site, which is also very affordable right now, and that way you can gain access to all of my courses. But from February 2024, the Rigify Fundamentals course will be free on Academy, so I highly recommend that you watch it there for the best viewing experience without ads and distractions. So we have a somewhat humanoid character, but the legs are slightly animal-like, and if you watch the bonus session about rigging quadrupeds, you should know what kind of leg that is. If you said digitigrade, then you're correct. Then we have a fairly normal body and one human arm with fingers, which will rig. But on the other side, we have something that looks like a tentacle. In Blender 4, we have a brand new rig types, a spline tentacle, so I thought it would be a nice opportunity to practice using it. Then we have a head with ears and a tail. To start rigging, you can press Shift-A, Armature, and start from the human Metarig, or from the basic human, because this character has a lot of human elements in it. Or you could start from the wolf, because the legs are kind of animal-like. But here, we'll practice creating a rig from scratch. So I'll press Shift-A, Armature, and create a single bone. This will give us more opportunity to practice, but also if I used some of the pre-built Metarigs, they have a lot of things set up, including a rig menu and bone colors. The next chapter in the course will teach you how to create your own menus and your own bone colors. And so another reason for starting from scratch is because we'll be able to use this character in the practice session of the next chapter. Anyway, let's activate X-Ray, go to edit mode, select this bone and delete it. It's just like the default cube, you usually end up deleting it. Let's go to the Armature tab and make sure you're in edit mode. Go to Rigify, Samples, expand the search field and search for spine. Choose Spine's basic spine, not the super spine, this one is deprecated, and click Add Sample. From the side view, align this spine with your character. Next, I want to add a leg. But what kind of leg would work for this character? One of the great things about Rigify is that it is fast and it allows us to test things. So I'm going to look for leg and find the limbs leg, which is the human leg, and add the sample. But also, I'm going to look for paw, choose the rear paw, because this kind of leg would generally correspond to the hind leg of an animal. And I'll also add this sample. If you look at the names, it has the .l suffix, so I'm going to symmetrize it. And then with X symmetry disabled, I'll delete the left side. So I'll have a human leg on one side and animal leg on the other side. And once we test it and see which one works better, I'll go back to the Metarig and make both legs the same. So let's align this human leg to the left leg of our mesh. It should be something like this. And we have this heel bone, which is usually aligned with the heel of the character for plantigrade feet. In this case, I'm not quite sure what to do, so I'll place it around here. Then I'll hide the left leg and align this one from the side view. something like this, and then align it from the front view as well. Now from the samples, I'll look for arm, select limbs arm. Always highlight the entry before clicking add sample, because otherwise you'll get the previously selected entry. So add sample, align the arm with your character. From the top view as well. Something like this. Keep it as straight as possible from this view. And from the top view, give it a little bit of a bend to indicate the direction of bending of the elbow. I'll press Alt-H to unhide the leg. And let's match the two legs, even though they're a different type. Okay, now for the shoulder, I want a super copy. So I'll select the basic super copy and add sample. Or let's actually practice something else. I'll just press Shift-A to add a new bone. Align it with the shoulder. Something like this. And now because we just added a simple bone, it doesn't have a rig type. So I can go to pose mode, select the bone, go to the bone tab, and give it a rig type of basic super copy. So that is exactly the same thing. Whether I create bones myself and give them a rig type or use the samples, the end result is the same. The samples have the advantage that they give you correct structure of complicated rig types, such as the leg. So for the leg, I highly recommend that you use the samples. I'll push this bone deeper into the body and name it shoulder.L. Right click and symmetrize it. Then back to the armature tab, samples, look for head, highlight the super head and add sample. I'll align it with my character. The neck and the spine are currently not connected, and I'm sure you remember that they have to be connected. Well, actually, that's not entirely true. They don't need to be connected. I'll show you a special rig type option that you can change so that you don't need to connect these two bones. We'll do that a little bit later. Let's keep going. I'll look for tentacle now and choose the spline tentacle, not the simple tentacle, okay? And add sample. Rotate it a little bit and align it with this tentacle arm on the right side. If we go to pose mode and select the first bone, of course it will be spline tentacle. And notice this message that says a straight line wrist shape works best, meaning that keeping this chain of bones as straight as possible is ideal for this rig type. I'm going to tweak it just a little bit to align it with my tentacle here, but still keep it as straight as possible. And from the top view, I want to align it with the tentacle as well. Next, from the side view, go back to the armature tab, look for tail, highlight the basic tail, add sample, rotate it, and I can press S, then Z, then 0 on the numpad to straighten it, and then scale it up. Now let's say that we want more than 3 bones for this tail. I can just move this a little bit back and this one further back, and then I could select the last bone and right click and subdivide it, or just push it back a little bit and press E and then Y to extrude on the Y axis. And then maybe once more time, E, Y. And the last feature that we want to rig are the ears. So let's search for tentacle again. And this time choose the simple tentacle. And add sample. Scale it down. And align it with the ears. For this ear, I don't really need 3 bones. The simple tentacle can be a chain of 2 or more bones. So it is safe to select the last bone and delete it. And then align your remaining bones. The first bone holds the rig type, and that is why I deleted the last bone and not the first one. Then I'll press F2 and let's name this ear1.L. In the next bone, I'll name ear2.L. Then in edit mode, I can select these, right click and symmetrize. We are doing great, but now we have to rig the hands. Creating a palm and fingers rig can be a little bit complicated, but follow along with me and you'll be fine. Under samples, search for palm, highlight super palm and add sample. And it will be down there in the center of the world. So move it towards the arm of the character and align it roughly. And what this sample gives us is these 4 bones, but they are also parented to this palm parent bone. I think this is because if the palm bones do not have any parent, the rig doesn't generate correctly, but this bone is really not necessary. So go to edit mode and delete it, and then select all of your palm bones and parent them to the hand. Now the palm bones do have a parent, so it's all good. And you can align these bones a little bit better. You can use the volume snapping technique that we learned in previous chapters. And just align each bone, each palm bone, to point towards a finger. Like this. Next, under samples, look for finger, super finger, highlight it and add sample. And align it with your hand. And here we have something similar. We have the 3 finger bones and 1 additional one, which is a palm bone. So Rigify is kind of trying to push us in the right direction. It gives us the palm bone, but for beginners, this could be more confusing than helpful, because then you have to set up your own rig type for the palm. By the way, the rig type is in the first palm bone. So in this case, just delete this palm bone. We have our own palm, so we don't need it. And then I'll align this with the pinky. And then press Shift D and align this with the ring finger. Then Shift D and align it with the middle finger. And Shift D and align with the index finger. And finally, Shift D one more time and align with the thumb. Keep the thumb straight from this view and bent from the top view. Next, I'll do 2 things. First, I'll select the pinky, Shift H and isolate it. And I want to make sure that the bone is named properly. The Rigify sample automatically gives us finger bones called pinky, so this one is fine. So I'll just align the bones with the mesh. Again, I'll use volume snapping. And again, I'm snapping this first part of the finger a little bit deeper, not here at the base of the finger, because that is anatomically correct. And then I'm watching out for the wireframe and aligning the rest of the bones with the joints. Then Alt H, select the second finger, press Shift H to isolate it, and then this one I'll have to name properly. So it will be f_ring.01.L. Next one, 02.L. And here I have to fix this 0. And the third one will be 03.L. And then I'll align the bones. And I'll do the same process for the rest of the fingers. Rename and align. And when the fingers are aligned, I'll apply the technique that I showed you in chapter 4. Switch transform to active element and orientation to normal. Select a whole finger. Enable scale and scale it on the x-axis. Now the fingers should be well aligned. Let me just address what you would do if you had a face on your character. So under samples, find your face, faces, superface, and add the sample. From the side view, align it with your character. I'll roughly scale up the bones to match my character, and then find this little face bone, shift select the head, Control P, and parent it with keep offset. And then align the face bones to your character. For more detailed information about that, you can watch chapter 4 again. And if your character's face is more animalistic, then you could watch chapter 5, where we align these exact same face bones to a dog face. In this case, I won't need the face, so I'll hide the head and neck and box select over everything, leaving the ears unselected, and delete these bones. Alt-H. So this covers creating the Metarig. Now I want to parent the bones in the Metarig. First, I'll parent each finger to the closest palm bone with keep offset. And also the thumb to the closest palm bone. We already parented the palm bones to the hand. This is essential, so if you haven't done it yet, please do it. Then I'll parent the upper arm to the shoulder, both shoulders to the last spine bone, and also the neck to the last spine bone. Then this tentacle, I'll parent to the right shoulder, the left leg, right leg, and the tail to the first spine bone. You can go to pose mode and just move things around to test the parenting. Just move and rotate things and right click to cancel the movement. And by testing here, I can see that I forgot to parent the ears to the head. So go back to edit mode, select the ears, shift select the head, Control P, keep offset. And that should do it. We can actually try to generate. If I try to generate now, we'll get this error, which we also saw in the previous part. For a quick solution, go to Bone Collection UI and set UI row to 1. Again, in the very next chapter, we'll learn exactly how Bone Collection UI works, and you'll be able to create your own rig UIs. But for now, we just want to solve this generation problem. And the rig was generated. First of all, you may be surprised that we managed to generate this rig, even though, if I look at the Metarig, the neck and the spine are disconnected. And also, the tail is not connected to the spine. This is because if I go to pose mode and select the first neck bone, go to the bone tab, and check the Rigify type options, you'll see that the connect chain option is disabled. When you create the head from a sample, this option is disabled, but it is enabled in the pre-built Metarigs. That is why in the pre-built Metarigs, we had to keep the neck and spine connected. Of course, I could have told you about this option, but I thought that was too much for the beginner stages of the course. But by now you understand the rig types and you can start learning their options one by one. So by disabling connect chain, you can avoid this need to snap the neck and the spine together. And same thing here for the tail. Connect chain is off, so I don't need to connect this tailbone to the spine. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of this connect chain option. It just creates a little bit of a connection here, a little tweak bone between the spine and neck. And it can be nice, but sometimes it actually creates problems. So I'll just keep it unchecked here. If you look carefully, you may notice that there are no bones generated for the animal leg. And you may be wondering why, and this is very important. I wasn't planning this, it just happened by accident, but I was looking for an opportunity to show you this problem. If I select the first thigh bone, you'll see that it has no rig type. This happens when you select some bones and delete them and then press Ctrl Z to bring them back. All sorts of properties, such as the rig types, disappear in this action. I consider this a bug in Blender. I reported it, but for now there are no signs that it will be fixed. So you have to keep it in mind. If nothing is being generated, then the rig type may have disappeared because of this bug. So select your thigh bone and just give it the rig type again, which is paw, rear paw. And now I can generate again, and that will generate controls for the right leg as well. So the same thing seems to have happened for some of the fingers. So let's go to pose mode for the Metarig and select all of these fingers. And I do have the rig type on the pinky, so I can go to the Rigify menu and copy type and parameters. And that will assign the same rig type, the same finger rig type, to these fingers. I'll generate again. And here are my controls for the fingers. So the problem with disappearing rig types is very common, and I'm happy that I had the opportunity to show it to you. It will save you a lot of frustration in just trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Now I can hide the Metarig, select the character, shift select the generated rig, Ctrl P, automatic weights. And start testing. So everything is looking excellent actually. The only thing that we really need to figure out is which type of leg to use. The human leg behaves quite reasonably. Moving the IK works well, and if I rotate it, I rotate the foot from this point. If I test the paw, it behaves quite similarly, but if I rotate the IK control, it rotates from this point here. And then I have this control to tweak the rotation of the foot. To be perfectly honest, both of them seem to work, so you would have to do some animation and figure out which one you like better. Personally, I'll go with the paw, so let's go back to the Metarig, edit mode, make sure that the X symmetry is disabled, and I'll delete all of these bones for the human leg, and I'll check the name on the paw, and they have these 001 suffixes. I'll get rid of them. Then select all leg bones, right click and symmetrize, regenerate the rig, go out of local mode, and then I'll have to parent with automatic weights again, because we changed the bones. So most of the controls you should be already familiar with if you followed along with the previous chapters. The only thing that is really new is this tentacle, so I can grab its end control and just move it and stretch it. And by tweaking the rig type options for this spline tentacle, you can actually make it behave a little bit differently. In a video that I did about the updates of Rigify in Blender 4, I actually covered it quite extensively, so I'll share a link to that. The point of this chapter is not to teach you all about the tentacle. And that will be the end of chapter 6. I hope it was fun. I hope you saw how easy it is to create your own custom rigs, even if your character is strange and not standard. And so the last step is to make this rig a little bit more user-friendly. You may have noticed how this rig that we created is kind of colorless and sad, and we only have like very simple rig layers for all bones and then the root. Whereas if I create a pre-built Metarig and generate it, it is colored. It has this really nice rig layers menu. So in the next chapter, we'll learn exactly how this works, and you'll be able to create your own custom menus like this, and also color your bones exactly as you want. You're doing great. There is just one more step to go, and you'll have a full overview of all Rigify features. So keep going. I'll see you in the next chapter. Oh, and check out academy.cgdive.com because you can get access to advanced lessons, and it is a great way to support the channel.